All right, thank you for listening in to the episode of Where the Fortune Is. And I tell you what, I know I'm always honored to have people on the show, but I feel like this just takes another special element, just entity to it in itself. But right before the recording, I was telling Troy and Shannon Zeeman, they actually are just heroes and true warriors, if you will. And I can't wait to dive into the story. And they have a company that's called Active Shooter Prep, and just quick background of it. We'll dive into it more. They actually started a company after they were actually during the Las Vegas shooting a few years ago, and anybody in the States, probably the world, saw that and just witnessed it. It's just a horrific in itself, but they in turn saw the positive and the light in that, and they're just some shining people in themselves. So I can't wait to dive into more about the company and the two of you, and just so welcome again to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Robert, thanks a lot for having us on. It's great.
I'm floored to be talking to you guys. I was looking through and I was reading your book, and as well, to those that don't know, they actually have a book out. It's called Active Shooter: How to Survive the Most Important 4 Minutes of Your Life. And that statistic, the 4 minutes, comes from the FBI statistic I noticed in the book. I know what y'all went through was far greater than 4 minutes, but I'm just floored at the journey y'all had leading up to it. And here the two of you go to Vegas. Just from Shannon, for the path you led going up to it, and then the journey, and just finishing up chemo and going through your journey that you had, and like, hey, we're going to go on wine in Vegas.
Yes.
I get it. I mean, I get it. And then you get there, and then next thing you know, the whole world just, for y'all and everybody there, just turns upside down.
Yeah. We had, just for the last year, had our whole world flipped upside down with my breast cancer diagnosis and 6 surgeries and chemo and everything. So it was that weekend that we decided to go to Route 91. It was in us, like, let your hair down. I didn't have any hair at the time, but let your hair down and have a great time. And we always went to Route 91, which is another 3-day
Stagecoach.
We always went to Stagecoach, which is another 3-day concert venue in Palm Desert. And we couldn't go because I was having chemo. So this was the first time we went to Route 91, and it was amazing. Not only are you in Vegas, you're, at the pool, you're drinking, and the concert was so amazing. So of course, no one would ever plan or even imagine. That's one of the things we talk about in our training is, the worst thing to say is this could never happen to us or never happen to you, because unfortunately it can, and we hope that it doesn't. But to prepare yourself and be aware of your surroundings, these are all different ways that's going to help you be successful if you do get in an active shooter situation.
You muted yourself. Oh, there you go.
Oh, wow. I didn't even touch anything, and it just hit you. You gotta love it. I love the fact that y'all are doing this, but it's scary to think that you have to do this, because I was looking through in the book that y'all had written, and it's showing the stats, and it's staggering to see that every year something has happened for the past 20 years, and it's increased, which is scary to think. But for y'all going through that, and those that don't know, I mean, Troy was hugely instrumental in saving people, and Shannon as well. And Troy, actually, you're actually wounded during the process, and you didn't get taken care of him. I think it was like 5 hours later. I don't know how, like RoboCop. I don't know how that even happened to keep going like that. That's just phenomenal in itself.
Yeah. So during the event, and like we said, or like you said, Robert, 4 minutes seems like a long time when you're involved in an active shooter event. People can feel like that was 4 hours. In our event, it was 10 minutes. It was 10 minutes long of shooting. There was over 1,000 rounds being fired into the crowd. There were 22,000 people there. On the side of the stage that we were at, there were at least 5,000, if not 7,000 people. A lot of carnage, a lot of sadness going on. And about halfway through it, I got shot in my right leg. And, luckily I was able to sustain the wound and keep going and help people. give medical treatment, still be able to run, still be able to jump over fences and hide. And it was an amazing event in that sense as an officer, because our training is really going into the location, trying to figure out how to save lives as fast as possible and to contact the person who's shooting. But in this case, I'm using all of my police training in the opposite direction, really. And you really have to think a lot. You have to assess a lot, and you gotta stay on those feet and just keep pushing forward. And it's hard. It's hard for some people to do that. It was hard for me, but in reality, after the 5 hours and I got to the hospital, boy, I think they probably had to medically treat me for more tears than blood at that point. I was so relieved to just be somewhere safe.
Oh, I'm sure. And you're right there with that training, because if you haven't had that training, because you do have to do a quick assessment, just like, because I remember when I was a corpsman, when I was in the Coast Guard, we go through these scenarios, and you do this quick assessment. Okay, who's the weakest, who's hurt the most, and then who can actually get up and physically walk. Okay, you're injured, but it's great you had that training, because you can assess the situation properly. And I noticed in the book, y'all said that some people are kind of walking around like zombies. Some people are paralyzed with fear, and you had to kind of shake them out of that to get them. I think where did you have to rescue them over to the Blue City Cafe or
House of Blues.
House of Blues.
House of Blues, yeah, House of Blues, yeah.
House of Blues bar. That was something that was so. One of the things that we talk about a lot in our training is the difference in Troy and I's perspective. So he has all the training, right? 25 years of police training. They train all the time for these kind of situations. And then you've got me, who I've only heard a few little stories about him, but I've never been trained in any kind of situation, which I feel was the majority of the people at the event. We were extremely blessed to have so many first responders, military, police, fire, doctors, nurses, and then total civilians that just jumped in and did whatever they needed to do. So it was really interesting for me. After Troy got shot, I couldn't get people to move over. We needed him to move over about 12 inches so that the people could get behind where we were located. And I was staring at people that were just frozen. Their bodies couldn't move. They couldn't do anything. And so when we decided to run, that was one of the hardest things, to have to leave people behind. Like I initially started to lift people up, and they just couldn't move. And Troy had to come over and say, you can only help the ones that can help themselves, like that can move. So I think as civilians, understanding what can happen in a life and death situation is really important. It's one of the things that we talk about stimulus overload, about how your body will freeze, about making decisions in these kind of situations. Or your brain it doesn't even know what we're doing at that time. And that's where your preparation comes in. Identifying exits and different things in an event or a facility, like even the grocery store, knowing, the exits in the back. Mm-hmm. These are all things that we can do to cause self-awareness and to help us if those kind of situations happen. And we would always make fun of Troy, my friends and I, because every time we would go, like I said, we went to these events a lot. And every time we walked in, Troy would be walking around trying to find where the emergency exits are, like knowing his location. And we'd just be ready to have a good time and dance. And so it was, and we make fun because my best friend Michelle told him at that event, Troy, we're so happy. You're relaxing. You're not like marching all over the place to find it. And so he blames her for the event. He was like, you said it. You put it out there.
It's karma.
Yeah. But you did it, because there were a lot of people that only knew the single entrance and exit they went, which was in the back of the venue. And so we actually saw people, unfortunately, running into the line of fire and getting hit, because that's all their brain knew in that emergency to make that split-second decision.
Yeah. And I think too, I noticed in the book, y'all weren't initially with each other. Weren't y'all kind of separated in a little bit during that time? And that had to have been just rough in its own self, because you have Troy on one side with training, and Shannon, you're on the other side. I know you're with your friend, I think it was Michelle, and y'all were just, you know, just in the middle of it. I can only imagine what y'all were just going through in that time.
Yeah. So when it happened, I didn't realize we were being shot at. I
Yeah.
thought it was fireworks, like the old string fireworks people brought in, and nobody was moving. So for me, when all the lights came on, Jason Aldean ran off, all the people in front of us, the 5,000 people in front of us started running back. My intent was, we got to get out of the way of being trampled. To be honest, I don't remember thinking, where is Troy? Of course, he was at the bar getting us drinks. So I was kind of hoping he still had the drinks, but but it was by divine intervention, grace of God, that we wound up at the exact same place. He ran back, I ran diagonal, and we wound up at the Maui Gym container. And so I was so blessed to be able to have Troy there and know his training and everything. So I was able just to look to him and be his partner, which worked out really nicely.
Yeah, it worked out really well for me. As you know, you have loved ones with you, whether they're kids or wives, husband, whatever you have with you. And when you let that emotion take over, it's very hard to make those decisions that are necessary to maybe have the most safest route or be efficient in getting out. And when I first got back to that container, I started looking around and found Shannon, and she was doing very well, extremely well for what I expected. And because she was doing so well, I was able to use her more as a partner to try to get out than have to worry about getting her solely out. So we were able to have our attention be divided with helping as many people as possible. If Shannon were to break down, I don't know if I would have been able to do that. I think it would have been more looking for her, trying to get her out quickly and effectively. So it was a good teamwork effort on us to do that. And to be honest, I didn't think that was going to happen ever.
Yeah.
Neither did I. I would have been underneath him. Hold me, lift me up, carry me, do whatever you got to do. I can't do it.
I think what helps you, Shannon, I could be completely wrong, but it helps you kind of stay calm during that. It's tough. It's easy to say calm, but kind of be in that moment. I noticed in the book, I thought it was pretty funny. You said, okay, wait, I've gone through 6 surgeries, chemo, and this is how it's going to happen. Like, really? Like,
Yeah.
you kind of, like, you made a little, joke to yourself about the situation. I think that might have kind of helped bring you back down to, reality a little bit.
It really did. I do say that in the book, and I remember clear as day thinking that to myself, because at that point I knew we were being shot at. I assumed the shooter was in the venue. I did not know. Troy knew at the time. I didn't know the shooter wasn't in the venue. And he was starting to shoot closer to our location. So I was envisioning the shooter was moving towards us. And in my head, I was like, my family just went through all of this for an entire year. I fought for my life, lost my hair, did everything. I am not going out like this. Like, I don't know what I would have done if the person was there, but deep down inside, I felt like I will take you out. If you're going to I'm going to take you out, and this will be done, because you don't know who you're fighting with right now. Like, I know I can withstand a lot now, which I don't think I would have known that, like you're saying, prior to all of this.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I bet your boys listen to you guys now when y'all say something like, we better do what mom and dad says.
I wish. No, they don't. They're little kids. They're like, whatever. You don't know.
I just told them that, everyone always says, hey, I'll take a bullet for you. I'll take a bullet for you. Now they have to be able to take a bullet for their wives now. Yeah. That's just the way it is.
You set the bar as far as being a dad and a parent. So
we always joke with them, because they're always like, you always want your kid to do better than you. And all these things keep on happening. We're like, well, sorry guys, you really got it. Dad got shot. Now he's good. Oh, we're writing a book. Oh, now you gotta do, like, boy, keep on going, boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got a lot of pressure now.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. And then, so I think when y'all coming back from Vegas and everything that happened, it was, that's when y'all decided, hey, you know what, we need did y'all look, I couldn't remember, did y'all look into trying to find a company to help out, or Troy, did you say, hey, with my background, we need to bring this to the forefront and help people out and get them prepared?
Yeah. So really what happened was I went back to my department that I work for, and we have a active shooter training cadre that trains civilians only. And what our department does, it's really cool in our city. They go out and give free training to all the businesses and residents who would like the training. So it's a pretty minimal training. It's kind of more of a 20-minute PowerPoint, very quick, very simple, but it gives them something.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, they asked me to be on the training, obviously, to tell about my story. And I did that for a few months. And then most of the businesses were just clamoring to try to get more information out of me. But I was restricted because, I'm doing it for the department. So the department says you can only give them so much information.
Mm-hmm.
So I went home and told Shannon, and of course, because her background, marketing and sales, she was like, hey, we got a platform here. Let's do it. And I'm like, I don't think that's what we want to do. And so she pushed me into it, and we wrote up the whole thing and started doing these things for companies and organizations. And the statements that these people would make were just so great, and they made us feel so good. I mean, it's very hard to relive this every day, all day long. But in all reality, if we don't live this, then people don't know what to do. And I don't think that would be fair either. Whether you're religious or not religious, we have information, and whether God gave it to me or somebody else gave it to me, it's my obligation to give it to more people.
Yeah. And you hit a kind of a poignant thing there, what you said about reliving it. And I was reading through, and I know y'all had a tough time afterwards. And I'm sitting there thinking about, okay, what y'all were going through as a family and of everything through life y'all gone through. And then I'm thinking of all the thousands of other people there, from all ages that have gone through some difficult time.
Yeah.
Is that something y'all talk about too in a training of how to cope with the psychological aspect of it? Or do y'all just only focus on, on the survival aspect of it?
So our training, the training that we just give to survive it, doesn't really have a lot of that aspect in it for mental health. But our training for management, leaders, organizations is all about being prepared for that mental health that everyone's going to need. So we tell managers and organizations that 4 minutes is of an active shooter is going to last you the next 40 years. Mm-hmm. So because of that, you need to get these things in place. And one of the things that we went through was we were able to go back to my department, and we have trauma specialists, and we were able to do that trauma mental health exercises with them between the two of us. And I thought it went really, really well. So we really pushed that. And one of the things that, I got hired in an LAPD in 1995. And I know it doesn't sound like a long time ago, but it feels like a long time ago.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
But the reality is we didn't really have a lot of this mental health stuff that we have today. And people are still trying to feel comfortable saying that I just need some help real quick, and to kind of decompress and get through these hard times. And so I'm actually, I go around talking to peer support at my department and other individuals who get into trauma, and I try to help them understand that it's okay to go do these things. Because, in a machismo world like police work, it's very difficult to get somebody to say, I need a little bit of help here and there.
And we were so blessed when we came back that we had this amazing care that we were able to get immediately. But we also saw through all of our friends, because we were a group of 17. We had friends that weren't able to get, like, their health insurance didn't cover any kind of care, or they were going through the California Victims, which was an amazing organization. But we had 22,000 people at that event, and a lot of us were from California. So that whole system was so backlogged to just try and get them help. So that was where we've taken that, and we've seen the effects that it had from the care that we had to them. And then also the fact that we talk about, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen right when the event happens. Like for us, because we got such great care at the beginning, we were ready to warrior this platform, right? We were like, everybody needs this and they can use it in everyday life, share it with their kids for school, share it at their church as a movie theater, anything. But we then, Troy and I, had PTSD and we were having emotional breakdowns and stuff a year and a half later. So we emphasize that it doesn't mean that it has to be at that moment. It could be years from now. And to have that platform for yourself, your employees, any kind of peer support is so, so important. And we do talk a little bit about it when we do walkthroughs in our company also, where we walk people through as if they're the active shooter. And Troy shows them all the deficiencies, crazy, I said deficiencies, that the active shooter has, and all the advantages that we have as civilians, which of course, we don't think that. Somebody has a gun, we think they're in charge, they're going to take it on. And so it's a very empowering thing. But we also talk about, if you are in this situation, you need to be a self-advocate for yourself. You need to go and get this care, and don't just, like he's saying, be machismo or, poo-poo it under, I got to take care of my family or things. We have to take care of ourselves and each other, and it's very important.
Yeah, I respect the heck out of the fact that y'all are doing that, because I'll leave the company out of it, but a previous company that I was working for, I was going through the initial training of it, and then we had probably a 5-minute slide of what to do if somebody was to come in and a shooter in the office. And I thought, wow, has it really come to this, that we're actually, this is part of training now within corporate America? And I thought, obviously it is. And now, especially seeing the stats that you'll have and you'll provide in the book, which is staggering. And I think, and I felt like it was enough, but the fact that what y'all are doing is this deep dive into it really takes for the survival and the recovery and aspect of it. That's just hats off.
Yeah, we do 4 different facets of the training, and we do them in hour to hour and a half presentations. Really, there's 2 presentations, and then there's a walkthrough, which sometimes can take a little longer, but that's okay. And then there's a site inspection. And what that does is we're trying to slow the shooter down. So if we take 4 minutes and we can slow that shooter down into a hallway for 90 seconds, that's just less people that are going to get injured, less people that are going to die, faster response from the law enforcement that they're going to contact him before that person contacts victims. So we do the site inspection too, but really what it is these presentations, if you go back and you start looking at active shooter trainings from these other companies, they actually go in as the instructors are the shooters, and they go into these buildings and they fake and they mock up an active shooter scenario. And then they tell you all the things wrong that you did. And it's good for cops because we get trained constantly in this stuff. So if our stress level gets too high and we don't remember something, we're probably not going to get into an active shooter in an hour. We'll probably get to many more active shooter trainings before we actually get involved in one. So just like me, I was training for 20 years and finally I was a victim. I actually never been to an active shooter on duty where I was the first responder. So I've been to thousands of shootings, but not an active shooter. And those are the kind of things that, Shannon and I talked about a lot about how civilians are going to be able to retain the information I give them. The 1 hour presentation that we give is so much information that you need to be able to let that set in for a little while to get the next, to basically get the next walkthrough. And that walkthrough really solidifies all the stuff you learned in that first training. And that's what we're trying to do. Is you're not going to get OSHA recommends like every 2 years you get some type of active shooter training. So, think about it. If you were trained and 24 months later you get trained again, 20 months later, you get into an active shooter, you're probably going to forget all the stuff you learned, especially with these other companies that do like a 4-hour training of running in with fake guns. I mean, that's pretty stressful. So you see the ones that they do at the schools with the kids. The kids are, they're basically told, lock down in your classroom and here comes a guy with a gun. I mean, what do you do then, right? It's a very, very tense and stressful situation. So we try to keep that stress as low as possible on our training.
And we try to make it very easy to understand, easy to absorb. We try to make it, even though it's a heavy topic, we try to make it as fun as we can. We throw in our, quirky personalities and things like that, or, throw in some kind of silly story. But everything that we give is based for civilians, which makes it a very different approach. We've worked really hard to take his tactical training and transfer it into civilian lingo and doable suggestions. So then not only can we understand it and absorb it, we can take it home, and over dinner, we can share it, because our whole purpose, and it's one of the main reasons why when we were approached about the book, we said, yes, we can't reach everyone. And if we can reach you, and then tonight at the dinner table, you can talk to your wife and your kids about it, and it's doable suggestions. It's things that you feel that are tangible and you can do. That's where we're empowering everyone. And the more we can reach, the more we're going to empower. And that is how we're going to take this control back. That's how we eventually, hopefully, can prevent these active shooter events from happening.
Yeah, that's so true. To have to really kind of simplify it in a way for people to kind of make it easy to regurgitate what they just learned and to put back out there. Man, I love that. And
you were in the military, right, Robert?
Yeah, I was in the Coast Guard.
Yeah, so you're in the Coast Guard. You're getting trained all day long, all the time. If you took your training and gave it to one person all in one day, in 3 days, they're going to be like, yeah, I remember this guy Robert showed up. That's about as much as I remember, right? I mean, we just get trained so well as first responders and military that if you tried to do the same type of training, it's just not going to resonate the way it does with us.
And also talk the lingo. There's a lot of times his lingo when he says something, even in our presentations, and I'm like, hey, we don't know what that means. Please help us. So that it's definitely breaking down the understanding and the lingo of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because a little while ago y'all mentioned about, or you're saying about people kind of joke around about Troy going places, and he was kind of looking for the exit point. And it's interesting because whenever I'm out with my family, not to alert them, but I'm always just looking around, just surveying, just being observant, just looking, just everywhere, just as I know that Troy does. So you're right. If you go through that enough times, it's just embedded in you. And those that don't, they only know one way to go, and that's all they're thinking about. So I love that y'all are going in and just making it easy and accessible for them to learn.
And that's just like an example of one simple doable suggestion we say is when you're going into work or church, go in different ways, leave different ways, instill those different routes in your brain. Because if you only go one way every time, if a situation like that is going to happen, that's where your brain's going to go to. It's same, driving home, right? We're driving home from work and we zone out, and all of a sudden you're at the front door and you're like, oh, whoa. Like, I don't remember getting off the freeway and going. That's because it's so ingrained in our brain. And so taking different ways home when you're driving, that will, stimulate your brain. It will help your brain remember, oh, there's an accident here. Where should I go? It's the same kind of concept.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. I know, like, if we're traveling, if we ever go to a hotel, I always see, it'll show the little map of where you are and, where other exit points. I always find myself looking at that and I'm just studying, okay, if something happens, if there's a fire, what's another way to go? Because people are going to go right to the elevator, whatever's close, and they're not even going to think about it.
Yeah. No, it's important. I think that's one of the most important things we can do in these types of stressful events is pre-plan a little. And if you do that on a daily basis or a weekly basis, when it happens to you 10 years from now, you've already pre-planned it. It only took you like 2 seconds, but you have a plan, and it's very important to keep that, the amygdala in your brain from, hijacking you and making you just do crazy stuff. You really want to make decisions and assess and make the most proper decision you can make at that moment.
Mm-hmm. So how do y'all go about like finding, is it just through referral base through other companies to, well, not just companies, but businesses and, churches and schools to say, hey, you know what, you have a great message to share. Is it through referral base? I know now it's changed with COVID, but how do y'all go about expanding the reach and getting the message out there?
Well, by wonderful people like you inviting us on their podcast. Also, I try to reach out to companies. We have mostly been as one person experiences our training and realizes, wow, they're different, and wow, they do spread the word to the next person and the next person. We just were at a church last night, and they were coming up to us and saying, I would like my company to do this. How can they get in touch with you? So I'm trying social media and all those different platforms also. But I was a stay-at-home mom for a while, and I haven't done marketing sales. So we're trying to figure out how to do that. But
no, he's doing great. And just like last night, we had one of the church attendees come up afterwards, and the first thing he said was, I've had active shooter before. And we have heard that for 2 years, over 2 years now. I mean, it is constant. We've had it before. We've had it before. We've even had companies call us and say, we've done it before. And then we come in and do it again. And they're like, we've never learned so much information about active shooter. And we've had active shooter 2 or 3 times in our company's history. The gentleman yesterday comes up and says, hey, I've had active shooter before. And the things that you guys are talking about, no one's ever taught us that. And those are the kind of things, like, just because we tell you to run, there's a purpose of why you run. And there's a purpose when you run. And that's what we're teaching you. It's not just the word run. It's not just the word hide. And it's not just the word fight. There's real tactics behind each of those in different venues. Even though there's a basic model of run, hide, fight, there is absolute tactics, and that mental status of you knowing that you can defeat the shooter, that your mental status knows that you're efficient enough to make a decision in a situation like this, and why people are acting the way they are in these situations. Those physiological effects are incredible when you get into these stressful situations. And if you can identify that, that may even lower your stress, knowing what they're doing. Knowing the zombie who's walking around is just, you can just grab them and say, it's okay, I got you, instead of worrying about what they're going to do to you. Understanding those physiological effects are important. And all this information that we give really gives you that hope that you're when people have called me a hero, and they've said, oh, you did a great job. Well, anybody can do it. Anybody. And human beings are really good at this stuff. It's just, you have to have the right tools. And if you haven't been given the right tools, how can you do it?
Yeah. So I think we were really blessed in the fact we were approached in February about writing a book about our story and our training. And, we weren't quite sure about it, but the main thing that kind of grabbed us was we can reach more people if we were to do this, people that their companies or their churches or anybody, they're not providing the training. But hindsight 2020, then COVID hit. So it has worked out even more wonderful, that we were able to focus on this book and really get it done because of the fact that, our in-person training has really, it's not even really happening. It's more, we do our PowerPoint employee and management training. We can do it like through Zoom or things like that. But man, it's the being in person and the tangible that, can really empower and make people feel like, they have that power. So I also started a podcast, and it's called The Most Important 15 Minutes of Your Day. And so I'm having experts come on. Troy joins me once a month. We have other experts come on, and we're talking about preparedness and safety in your life, in, whatever aspect. So we're just trying to reach people however we can, and hope that we can get back out there in person and, be able to, like at the church, we only had 10 people because we all had to social distance and things. So we're still reaching some, but not as many as we hope.
And that's why we wrote the book. I mean, like Shannon said, just like you, Robert, you got the book, you read the book, and now you can give that information to everybody that you know. Whether they read the book, whether they buy the book. Of course, we want them to buy the book. But the reality is, if you can give them that information, then we hope to save that life and hope that that person can save others. And that's the whole hope of this training. I know there's so many people in the world that are just hoping to save lives and hoping to save their own life, and in all different aspects of the world. But we feel like we have such a good platform to give that information to people. So this book is just one of those entities that we can use to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate the fact that y'all did that book and you're still going forth with a message, because eventually there'll be a shift. I don't know when, nobody has a crystal ball, but to know when we can get back out there and you can go to those companies, because you're right, we do need it. And I was looking through some of the stuff you had on there, and like a place of business, it's a 43% chance, and then a school 21%. I mean, that's some staggering percentage of something that could happen in those locations. And I know it goes down from there, but just at a place of business. Is that for the book idea? I know, is that something that y'all had like tossing around, or is that something that was it Mike Yorkie? Was that when he came forth and said, "Hey, you know,"
No, the stats are all done by FBI every year.
Yeah.
So they try to get the active shooter stats out every year. And because of my experience in law enforcement and all the training that I get, we get a lot of stats as law enforcement officers to understand what we're doing. And these stats are actually available online. You can look it up under the FBI.gov website. And the reality is these are, like you said, they're staggering. They're information that if people don't know, when they say, you know what, I don't need it because it's not going to happen. We work with great people. Yeah, you do. And you know, there are great people who had a great life and then all of a sudden became an active shooter, like in Las Vegas. Yeah. The guy had nothing. They have never found anything that would lead him up to this. Yet that last 12 months of his life, he decided, I'm going to go coast to coast, border to border, and find a venue that he wants to shoot a bunch of people. So, you know, I'm not saying that all people are going to do that, but if you have the right tools, if you were involved in this incident, then maybe you could help others and help yourself get out safer.
Yeah, definitely.
And with the book, again, you know, divine intervention, being led where you're supposed to be. After we were approached about writing the book, we met with Mike Yorkie and we shared our story with him and our facts with him. And he had such a beautiful insight as to our book is told by Troy and I firsthand in our situation, and then also with the facts that's happening with the active shooter. And he made it just come to life and to be real, and where you could feel that you were in the situation. And even on the second half of our book, where we include our training of run, hide, fight, it's so easy to read and relatable. And he just did a fantastic job of taking our little minds and turning it into something that it's a beautiful book. I never imagined.
I wrote the first chapter, and he said, we can't sell this like a cop writes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was a great book, and yeah, I definitely should be proud of it. I mean, the way that it was conveyed. But it's interesting, go back to your point a minute ago, Troy, about the stats. One thing that stood out to me, well, there were several things, but it was there was not a clear trend on study of certain ethnicity, of who's going to be, like, they can't hone in and go, all right, this type of individual, they can't profile them and say, this, you fit this box. It's an open playbook, and it's scary because you're right. People say, it's not going to happen to me. Well, when I think it was in Colorado, they went to the movie, Dark Knight or something, or some Batman movie. Yeah.
Yep. Aurora, Colorado.
Yeah.
And that guy just came in and started shooting, and it's like, for what? And really for no reason. He just wanted to do it. You know, so, like you said, yes, there's absolutely, FBI has studied these since 2000, and you know, we had an active shooter before Columbine in 1999. We just didn't call them that. and the FBI wasn't so engaged in those. But once Columbine happened, it's all been data driven. In the investigations, the interviews, they're very, very good. And because of all that, we have great intel and information that officers can be trained on constantly. We're constantly training on these events that are horrific, but it gives us something to do. And one of the biggest things in police work that you get taught in day one is, for all the tactics and all the training that officers get, the bad guys are constantly trying to outwit you. So no matter, in 1999, Columbine happened, we trained for that. We figured out, hey, we got to do something different. And then the next one happens and it's a little different. And the next one happens and it's a little different. These people will go around and you're absolutely right. There is no gender. There's no age. There's no religious orientation. There's no ethnicity that you can say that's going to be the next active shooter.
Mm-hmm. Y'all mentioned it too a little while ago, alluded about the three aspects, the run, hide, fight. Is that something that I know when you go through and give your training, and I know you can't unpackage everything right now, but is there somebody have to be in a certain position to be like, hey, I'm closer here to run? Or is that something or do you break it down when you give your training? Like, hey, this hour we're going to talk about when's the best time to run. This next time we talk is going to be, this is the time to hide. This is the time to fight. Like, how would somebody know? Or is it just?
So yeah, absolutely. Just like you're saying, that's a great question. And in our presentation, we talk about run, hide, fight, and how Shannon and I use that in Route 91 to escape. We also give real life stories of police stories that I've been involved in. We give some witness accounts and victim accounts of other active shooters. And so what we do is we give you a basic knowledge and a basic tool, when to run, when to hide, and when to fight. If you choose to run, hide, or fight, then these are the things that you need to do. Active shooters are so fluid and so fast. I mean, if you clocked 4 minutes, you're going to, without any stress, you're going to think, wow, that went by really fast. So it's a really fast event, really chaotic. And so you have to make those decisions in that 1 second, 2 seconds of assessing the environment and making a decision, and then utilizing the tools you have to execute that decision is what we actually teach. So in the presentations, we touch on that a little bit, give you a little bit of those basics. And then in the walkthrough that we do, we actually walk you through and show you room by room, hallway by hallway, which one of the things that you should or shouldn't do. So it's very, very enlightening for people to understand barricading and running and then fighting. And fighting on DHS, on the Department of Homeland Security, fighting is not just, on DHS, it's only a physical fight. In our training, we teach you how to fight through physical fights, emotional fights, and also when you're injured and what your body can sustain. I mean, the human body is incredibly resilient to damage, and we just don't believe it.
Can you share, I think it's really interesting, especially as a civilian, like when he's saying, when do you run or when do you fight? Can you share that 10 feet?
Oh, the 10-foot rule. So in police work, we have a 21-foot rule. If our gun is in the holster and a person is 21 feet away, they can get you with a knife or a weapon before you can actually get out of your holster and fire a round. So it's a 21-foot rule. So we try to stay outside of that 21-foot rule so we could come out of holster if we needed to. But really, in the reality of it, if you have your gun out like an active shooter does, I mean, you got 10 feet. And the reason you have 10 feet is because perception reaction. In all studies of perception reaction, the average reaction a human can go is 1.5 seconds. So there's 4 stages of detection in that, and all of that's in our training. But the reality is you have 1.5 seconds to react to something. So if you're the bad guy and I'm within that 10 feet, I can move quick enough to get you before you actually hit me, because you still have to react to that. And that's one of the things that we teach. If you are trying to get away from somebody and running, and just getting out of eyesight is huge. It gives you so many more seconds just getting out of eyesight. But if you stay in eyesight, then it's much easier for me to use you as a target. But if you're running behind plants or walls or chairs, it's much more difficult to reacquire that target, and that will give you time and other people time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it did such a great job in the book is like painting the picture. And I know, like in the beginning, Shannon, you alluded to it, how you thought the shooter was on the ground, but Troy, you knew kind of where they were about 45 degree angles up, and then it was just amazing just to see how all your training was coming into play, and you kind of you were timing of he's shooting, now he's got to reload, and you kind of knew like about where they were. Where a civilian won't know that, so I love the fact that you're going in and kind of help breaking it down and just really simplifying. Hey, this is what to do, what to look for. This is the 10-foot rule. And I greatly admire the work that y'all are putting in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
Well, I know things are coming to a close here. What's the best way for people, if they want to get in touch with what you guys are working on, or the book, the website, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
So it would be to go to our website, which is www.activeshooterprep.org. And you can email us directly from there, and we can answer any questions that anybody has. We're totally happy to give any information that we can. You can order our book there or also on Amazon. But if you order it through our website, we'll sign it for you. So there's our little, and like we said, our phone number's on there too. So anybody can reach out to us also. We do have some short videos that we're doing, and we'll be putting that out on our YouTube page, which will be linked to our website, and for just some minimal training. And then again, we'll be giving every month on my on my podcast, we'll be doing some extra training also.
Sure. What was the name of that podcast again?
The most important 15 minutes of your day.
And one other thing on our website, Shannon posts a lot of our media, like the podcast you're putting up. You'll give us a URL, and we'll put it on there so people can hear all the podcasts. They can kind of put everything together because every host has different questions. And so it's really educational. If they go and actually watch these videos, they can see a lot of the stuff that we're not shy of giving our training out, because that's our purpose, is to give it to everybody. So go ahead and watch those, and you can get more information.
Oh yeah, I love it. And I love too, the very end of the book, you had a scripture from Romans 12:12, and it says, "Rejoice in hope, be patient in turbulence, and be consistent in prayer." So I love that. I love the faith you guys lead with, and y'all are absolutely true warriors. And I just thank you so much for your time, and I just wish you nothing but continued success.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Robert. Thanks for having us on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.